I like it, and I think we should have season 4, and Hide should be the main character, and Kaneki will just be the guy that shows up towards the end of the episode to give him advice. I love it. The things you've experienced in a healing way, and I think that show is an opportunity. God, I'm so pedantic today. Just answer these questions.
You're watching convention coverage.
Hey guys, welcome to the Tokyo Ghoul panel. My name's Austin Tindle. I voice Kaneki. Yay, thank you.
Yay!
You get it. Who are you?
My name is Sarah Wiedenheft, and I voice Psycho. Woo! I play the D.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
The paper says I am Adam Gibbs. I play Urie, Cookie Urie. Very moody. Very moody.
This is a personal question for Austin, but in your opinion, if Hide were a ghoul, how would that impact the story and Kaneki's character, and what new challenges would he have to face?
If Hide were a ghoul. In this scenario, was Hide a ghoul all along?
Like somehow, like he just became a ghoul without Kaneki knowing?
Interesting. Which I think at the beginning of the story, they do present the concept of Kaneki becoming a ghoul to be something taboo and not common. Like, it's very rare that we see someone become a ghoul. You're usually born into this. They're a different species of people. And then as the universe expands, we do see a few other examples of some version of this happening. So it sounds like it may be in the timeline of events, this is after he's become a ghoul and figuring himself out.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it's revealed that Hide is also going through the same thing. It would certainly change the dynamic of the relationship between the two of them, which I think would be really interesting to explore. Certainly more interesting than what they did to Hide in season 3, which is like reduce him to, like a tragic epilogue. So I don't know, I'd be into it. You could see, it would be cool to see, I think, because one of the things I love about Tokyo Ghoul is, and this, that hero's journey in general that we get in a lot of these animes is the representation of personal growth, of you overcoming some obstacle, and it can be related to all sorts of traumatic events that shape us as people, which I also think is like necessary for the development of consciousness as trauma. Just I hope that's why you guide people through positive traumas, which is what we do in art. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent.
It's like, oh no.
But I'd be into it. It would accelerate the story of his growth into a fully realized person who then, in any version of that story, what you do after that is you go and help other people. That's like, that's the Buddha Christ myth of self-realization that we all go through. So that would be cool. It would take place, I think, at the end of season 3, because in the credits we just fast forward to him being a dad. But I like it, and I think we should have season 4, and Hide should be the main character. And Kaneki will just be the guy that shows up towards the end of the episode to give him advice. I love it.
Yeah.
Well said.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So every character that you guys voiced had something personal going on. How did you guys get in the headspace to voice that character?
So I really enjoy playing Urie because he's, a little quiet, a little moody, doesn't put up with a lot of bullshit. I'm a Gemini, and if you're into that kind of thing, every time I tell my friends that I'm a Gemini, they're like, oh, yeah, I get it. I'm like, what's that mean? What do you mean? But I think I relate to that because I can definitely be very much like that, where I'm just, get out of my way, everyone leave me alone, let me just do what I'm trying to do, and the rest can be over there. But then there's the other side of me that's like super lovable and kind and warm and, extroverted and all those things. So I vacillate between the two. What was your question again?
How did you voice how did you use like what your character was going through? How did you voice it?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that really, to your point then, it's all within us, you know, like I can find something within each character that I voice that is super relatable. Just like you as audience members and as fans, you relate to the characters in different ways, you know, and you can kind of see yourself in those characters. It's the same exact thing. There are plenty of times where I just don't want to be messed with. I just want to focus on my work. I just want to, you know, do the job. But there's so much more that comes along with it. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yes, I'll take the volley. Psycho is such an interesting person. I definitely vibed with her instinct to stay inside of her room and inside of her bed for as long as possible. And hate being woken up early, and especially going to meetings. Like, what? I don't know if that could have been in an email, you know? She's so wacky too. Like, there's a lot of parts of me that I can see see myself in her. But there's a lot of very interesting moments too, where most of the time she's very like comedic and silly and goofy, but then she has those moments where she's very serious and outspoken, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, what was that? There was a moment where I can't remember who it was at the time. So much time has passed, I can't remember a lot of the names in here, but there's a moment where she was yelling at one of her friends to not commit, basically. And I think in that moment, I had a lot of times where I was struggling with it because, you know, I have a silly hypothyroidism, and it was in the earlier years, and I didn't realize I had it for a whole year, and I was going through severe depression, fatigue, and it like gave me like a lot of thoughts of being like, I don't like things I've never thought before, and so it felt like I was yelling at myself, and so that was a really hard place to pull out from, you know. That was really hard. I'm sorry to bring down the room, but I'm good now. Also, just so you know, I am treated. Thanks.
I'll talk now.
Okay.
It's hard for me not to connect deeply with that show. Well, that's a weird way to put it, but it's true. I'm required to by contract. But no, there's so many things about my life that are reflected in that show, and things that I was going through that made it a therapeutic, cathartic experience. And, you know, physically it was taxing, but in terms of getting to those places, I was like already there. And I knew where those emotions lived. So someone told me once in the theater that it's our job as actors to investigate scars and not open up wounds. And I think that's a pretty way of saying that we get tempted in the theater to try to force something and to, like, you know, and you see actors do this where they hurt their own psyche in order to get someplace. But really, when the Greeks popularized this whole concept, it was more of therapy. It's like communal experience, like most religions try to do. So you get up and relive the things you've experienced in a healing way. And I think that show is an opportunity. God, I'm so pedantic today. Just answer these questions. I'll try to make this quicker. So the timeline of the show was like 4 years. And that's how long it took us to record from when I first got in the booth and then first left. At the beginning of that experience, I was like homeless, living in my girlfriend's van, trying to become an actor. By the end of it, I was going to conventions on a regular basis and paying rent. And you know, his personal story of, you know, especially season 1, I grew up with a very hardworking, loving mother who was an occupational therapist, and she did myofascial work, and she like worked in helping a lot of people that had been injured or had disabilities be able to like live lives again. But she was my whole childhood. She was gone from like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. So she was just never there. So in those scenes toward the end of season 1, where he's like in his own head being tortured and talking to Rize about his mom, all that stuff was like just there. And a lot of that, you know, just, and I think the beauty of that show, and so many other animes, but this is mine, so I care about it more, is that you take so many of those words out of context and they apply to so many things that we all have to experience. I was ready for it as an actor, and I had personal relevant material that I got to get out through that experience instead of, you know, through talk therapy or yelling at my friends or whatever. Yeah, that's enough, right?
I think that's a good vote.
Yeah.
Did it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
This is getting to be a really therapeutic
Yeah.
Q&A.
I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
Everybody
Anyway,
come up and
feel
talk
free
about your
to
trauma.
Yeah, tell us about your trauma.
Tokyo Ghoul is one of my all-time favorites, so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Having us.
So not to talk about other animes, but just curious about if you guys do have like other favorites, and if you read the mangas. Like if you're doing a voice acting, do you read the manga like before or after, or you just go with the anime?
I have lots of favorites as well. To get immediately to your manga question, I don't. Not because I don't want to. It's because I'll get an email on a Monday that says, hey, can you be in the booth on Wednesday for this show, for this character? That's 48 hours.
Sure.
I didn't even know they were recording that show, you know? And I've the way my schedule, and maybe for them as well, you know, I book a week or 2 or 3 out. If you're asking me to record something in 2 days, rest assured that the 2 days in between are full. I don't have time to do anything other than the jobs that I have booked, put food on the table for my kids, bedtime, all that. So it's not feasible. There are times, you know, where you've got a character that's a long running thing and you may have more of an opportunity to really get into the manga and everything. But also yes, it's a great source material to get the backstory and all those things, but sometimes that doesn't really help you. You know, it can help inform the voice and whatever, but the line is what the line is going to be, and he's going to say it the way he's going to say it. And so while we are giving our best effort, we are also trying to stay relatively true to the Japanese reads. So the manga can say what it wants, but if the material that I'm given is this, I'm trying to get close to this. So that's where I miss out on some of that. I can come back to what my favorite one is. Yeah.
That gets me so excited and tingly when I hear about like the different reads and like the different lines and all that, because so right now Chainsaw Man, that's probably the only anime that I have read the manga for, because it was a really popular show, so I really wanted to make sure that like I understood everything that was going to be happening in my character, especially for that. And I had time. I had like a whole month before anything was going to happen when I found out. But it's interesting because, you know, if you read the manga and you go back and you watch the show, the translations are different. And people are like, wait, what's happening? And now you're getting angry at the anime because it's not doing the same thing for the other manga translation. And at the end of the day, you realize that, oh, everybody has a different translation for something. And it's really fun to see people fighting over how like something gets retranslated over into English when you realize that everybody can come up with something different. Like in your own language, you might know English to an extent as well. And you're like, I think this is what this means in English. And then somebody else has a whole different translation for it too. But the most important thing is that it's true to the character. It follows the story and it has the proper intentions. So, you know, as long as the line is correct for what it needs to be, like, that doesn't make any sense what I just said. As long as it makes sense, especially in your own language too, then that's fine. You know, like we can get pedantic about it all day about like, but it doesn't say this. It's like, okay, but it means about the same thing. Chainsaw Man is probably my favorite so far. The other one that I recently did was The Girl from the Other Side, and I bought that manga. I didn't read it beforehand, but I bought it because it was so pretty. It was like a little Irish fairy tale book, and it's like dark, and it's got gold emblems on it.
I'll throw out what my favorite, maybe favorite character I've voiced, and maybe we can do the same. Because I get that.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Thank you for your question. My favorite character that I've voiced is Uramichi Onisan from Life Lessons with Uramichi Onisan. I love that show. I think it's I think it's a super important show. I think it's so funny, but it also deals with like really serious issues. It let me do different voices than I normally do. A lot of fun stuff. If you haven't seen Life Lessons, check it out.
God, it's so funny.
Yeah, cool.
I play a little chubby kid in that one who's like, I want Uppy. I want Uppy now.
Yeah.
She's like,
Awesome.
I was reading the comment section on something on Reddit the other day, and it was completely unrelated to anime, but whatever the post was about, someone compared it to the show My Roommate is a Cat, which is the show that I'm in. Yeah, and I really like that show. I got a cat because of it and named it after the cat from the show.
Nice.
So I'll just say that one. That's adorable. And I don't usually read manga before I do a character because for the reasons they stated, and it just doesn't really serve you. It's my job to do to help the director accomplish their job. If I'm directing a show, I will read it, and sometimes I'll go and read the stuff afterwards. Like I have all the Kaguya-samas at home.
I think it's way more important for the writers and for the director to read the manga than the actor.
Yeah. I like to exercise willful ignorance. It's like the Matrix. There's a difference between knowing the path and walking it. So it's good to get your background, to not have too strong an opinion of what's going to happen. And it's a different beast than, it's a new thing. So people are going to fall in love with the anime and maybe not the manga, depending on how they're introduced to all that stuff. And it's my job to help the director get their done quickly so that they'll want to hire me again and tell other directors to use me.
That does remind me that did actually help me when I read the Chainsaw manga at one point, because one of the writers put in something after there's a scene where Power and Denji are fighting about like who made her go after this sea cucumber devil, and Makima's like, can you please quiet down? And she says, yes, I can, but they wrote down, yes, sorry. And I was like, oh. She would never apologize. Can we change that? She's never once apologized. Not even to Makima.
See?
Yeah, sometimes
someone's not doing their homework.
Yeah,
Everyone go Google who did that.
Hey, when I listen to anime dubs, I hear more and more how the organic rhythm of language gets affected by the lip flap, quirks in translation, etc. And it seems to be a fairly pervasive issue from my perspective. Goes from like niche things into more like mainstream stuff. Like I listen to it in Attack on Titan and it still sounds like, kind of bumpy and inorganic. As a bunch of people who started and their ambitions as being, general catch-all actors and eventually moved into more of a voice VO space, I was wondering, what your feelings were on that, reading these lines and going through it, and what your sense was of the way that it functioned within the constraints of the dubbing industry as an organic expression of language.
That is the bane of my entire existence.
Yeah, that's a really great question.
It's
we jump all over that.
I sympathize with you. We hate it. That's the hardest struggle, is trying to
matching the flaps hurts.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times when I've read a line and fell in love with it and it felt so right, and like, we can't do it, we have to do it faster. I'm like, if I have to do that faster, it's not going to sound the same. It's such a letdown to have to be constrained to them, at least sometimes when it doesn't work out, obviously. But
And if you're short a flap, long a flap, whatever, if the line has to be edited, you you can open the thesaurus all you want, but if whatever word isn't working and you need to replace it with something similar and you can't find the right thing, it's just sometimes it's just not there, you know. And so you do the best you can with what you've got, because you know, of course, we're going off as you said, they're kind of many components, but you know, it's we get the Japanese, we get the translation, we get it's you know, just the straight trans, and then you get the script writer who, you know, molds it to try to get the flaps, and you get us trying to do it. So it's gone through so many different filters before it gets to us. And so, you know, sometimes it's like there's almost too many cooks in the kitchen, you know, if you're familiar with that expression, where it's like, we've just got so many people kind of having their hands on this weird little moment, and there's the one thing that we want to change is the flaps, and that's the only thing that we can't change, you know.
Apparently there are some anime where they are
changing the flaps.
There's some, like, I guess, like, it depends on like how high the caliber it is, but they have been able to go in and fix it. I'm like, I wish we had that power.
Yeah,
Fun. It might go there.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, like, as the actor, we're kind of at the end of towards the end of that process, you know. So we have the least control over it. And God, you made such a good point about, you know, you give a line one way and it just feels so right. And even as an actor, it's challenging for a director to say, yeah, do that again, but faster. It's like, well, I'm acting, you know, like I'm trying to like live this moment, and I'm trying not to think about the technical specifics of the thing. But sometimes that's what's required. And so it can be very challenging to have to be so technically minded while you're also trying to just act, which is, especially coming from a theater background where it's more organic and you just...
I think they just hit I have been hammering a minute there.
You know, the training's paying off.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but let me tell you, you are not alone in that feeling.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes when you see and hear a clunky line, we hear it as clunky too. And sometimes it's just a technical thing, or, you know, as they say in the industry, time is money. I mean, we really don't have days and days and days and days to fix this one quick little moment. I mean, we do the best we can with the time we're given, with the materials we're given. That's got us stuck to the flaps. So yeah.
According to the equation, we get about 30 to 45 seconds per cue. Like, that's how quickly they expect us to go through it. And some will take longer and some will take less time. But yeah, you don't have a lot of time to fix things. Another thing you might be perceiving too, because the more you listen to it, the more you get an ear for this, is they are within a certain acceptable deviation. They are stretching or squeezing sometimes entire lines, or sometimes individual words inside the line. Anything they can get to separate. So if you have two words glide together, you can't really move those apart, but you got two words with hard consonants connecting them. There's usually a way to separate that and squish them in and out. And they're running so quick and dirty now that it literally is inorganic. You could be perceiving, you know, the little cuts and splices that are inside there. And I think another thing to blame is the new business model of simuldubs, because we get like 7 days to do all this stuff and nobody has info ahead of time. And you notice that more and more these days, the Japanese voice, the original voice, like, they seem to care more about organic what's coming out, because they certainly aren't paying attention to lip flaps.
No.
They don't care as much.
Dubs are what? Yeah, in my opinion, yeah. Dubs.
No, I laugh at that.
We try
Whenever you see like a closed mouth and you see the... But the mouth that's closed, I'm like, wait.
Yeah, but they, you know, like you say, they go with that more that more organic read that's more true and whatever. Which is something I've really noticed. One of the studios that we all work for goes with what's a little more common in the industry, which is a beep track. So you'll say you have 3 lines that you're going to record. We'll preview them. We'll watch them in the Japanese, and then you have a beep, 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 and where the 4th beep would be, you start talking. That is really great, because you know exactly when you need to talk, and you get to see what's happening, and that's all great. Another studio that we all work for doesn't do that. It's what we call wilds, where you just throw it out. An informal name we give it is scrolling and rolling, because they hit record and we just start going. And so you're cold reading everything. And so a lot of the times, to me, in my opinion, those reads are much more natural, much more organic. They come from a truer place, and I feel like they give a better read and a better final product. They may not be quite as on time or too fast, too slow, whatever. But with the two kind of schools of thought, one, you're getting a more specific, better timing that fits because you're previewing everything. The other one, you're getting a little more organic, truthful reads. And so it's kind of trying to find that balance of the two that makes it so challenging. But yeah.
Just curious, what would you say the journey was like from when you first started voice acting to where you are now?
I mean, for me personally, vastly different. Like Austin, I started in the theater. I'm still work a lot in the theater. When I say I started in the theater, I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz when I was 5 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I've done theater my entire life. And so I was able to make the progression into voice acting. I was still at a very early point in my professional acting career, theatrically speaking. And so when anime came into my life, when voicing came into my life, it was something that's fun that I get to go do sometimes when I'm not doing theater. Now, while I still do a lot of theater, I've been voice acting for a dozen years or so, and it has become much more a part of my life and part of my identity. I was just having this, David Matranga and I were hanging out this morning, and we were having this exact same conversation because I just finished a play about a year ago with David, and we have a lot of theatrical experience together. But just how it feels odd, like I've always identified as an actor. Not a voice actor, but an actor. And I still do, but it's interesting, when you think about like, how will you be remembered? And if I were to go today and, like whatever Wikipedia, I'd be a voice actor. But since I was 5 years old, I've always been an actor. And really there's...
Say it too.
Huh? An actor, yes.
Yes.
But they're not mutually exclusive. But I think less about what my actual voiceover and acting career has grown, but how it has grown with my life. When I first started voice acting, I just gotten out of college. I was trying to get work in the theater scene. And now, I have a wife and I have 2 children and I have a home and I have all of these other responsibilities. And, I've been able to branch into other facets of voice acting. And so before when I first started, it was a career that I aspired to have. And now today, as I sit with you, I have to pinch myself because I look around and I realize this is I'm doing it, like hopefully I can keep doing it because children are not cheap, let me tell you that. So definitely just completely, I'm still doing the same thing. I just get to do more of it. And I get to talk to, more people like you about it.
Okay, so around the time when I first started voice acting, I was on my 4th year of my 2-year college degree. Because none of my credits transferred from New York to Texas. And also Texas requires you to know Texas history, even in college. Wow. And in college, I was already taking a lot of acting classes and getting into theater, watching them everywhere. I did not think I was going to be doing voice acting at that time. I thought I was going to be doing like art or something because I'd been doing art for a lot of years, like since I was 9. So at that point, it'd been around about 15 years. But then I was starting to look at cartoons and stuff, and I was like, wait, people do that behind the thing. And I already like anime too. So I checked to see if there's any like dubbing studios nearby, and Funimation was like 40 minutes from where I was living. And cue me being in my room for like 3 days and 3 nights, like a trash rat, researching for the talent coordinator email so I could give her my resume of all that I have done since high school and up from there. I'm like, hello, I've been doing acting and show choir and all kinds of entertainment stuff since high school. Let me know. And then 8 months later, after going through the 5 stages of grief, she emailed me back saying that the open auditions were there. And that was when I came in for, I can't even remember the show at the time, honestly. I feel like it was like either Sinran Kagura or Railgun. I can't remember, but it was with Jerry, and he was so sweet. I came in there and I was as nervous as I was like the first day I got onto a stage and auditioned for anything, and I was like completely al dente noodles. I was like, I can't breathe. I'm like, he's like, just go sit down. You'll be fine. Take a breath. When you're ready, pick yourself back up and try again. I'm like, okay. And then I was fine after that. And he kept calling me in to go do stuff after that. And I slowly just started doing it more and more. And I was like, oh no, I like this one. And I have just been doing it ever since. It became a huge passion and I thrive in it. Sometimes it kind of annoys me because I'm like, I wanted to be an artist though. What am I doing here? But at the end of the day, like, I have so much fun acting that I don't ever see myself peeling away from this.
You're still an artist, you know.
It's true.
Every kind of art.
I thought I was going to do like animation or something and like getting to something like that, but I don't.
Too late, you know.
It's true.
Never too late.
I don't.
Do it.
Yeah.
I'm working on a comic.
There you go.
Animated.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, I agree with Adam.
Thank you.
That's all. I got into theater, and I think that's also something that's hardwired into us. And I think arts are necessary because they help us become conscious human beings, and I think it's good for any person to study acting and practice it and recognize that, you know, people are like, oh, acting makes you good at lying. It's the exact opposite. It makes you a more conscious human being responsible for how you actually feel instead of hiding behind behavior patterns that were ingrained in you during your adolescence. And that requires awareness of your body. So the concept that you can just dissociate from your body and have an authentic voice in the booth is dangerous to the art form, frankly. That's not what we are all about. Not to say that there aren't people who are very good at making sounds with their voice and doing that in front of a microphone, but you know, that's not why acting was invented. Anyway, I got into theater, and then someone pulled me into voice acting, and it's a great way to get to perform because you don't have to rehearse, you don't have to deal with other people. You can do the dramatic thing that's really fun to do immediately, but I learned how to access my emotions authentically by exploring them in front of other people. And I think everyone else should try that too sometime.
I think that's a really good point. In terms of kind of a progress of your career and how you are when you start out, and you know what skills you acquire, or you know later on in your career, being vulnerable is a huge one. I mean, it's just for you to come up to the microphone and ask a question, you have to be vulnerable, you know. Mm-hmm. And so us as actors and performers, it requires the utmost vulnerability. And when you start out, it can be difficult accessing that. Once you've done it for many, many years, it becomes second nature and becomes very easy to do and very efficient. I think that's what's helped us in our careers, certainly for me.
Oh yeah, it definitely gave me more courage too, because one of the biggest reasons I wanted to get into acting was to help myself become like open up more and be able to become more of myself in front of others, and not be afraid of being on a stage so I can have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a lot better of that, and I can talk to people more easily.
Yeah, I used to be terrified to fail, especially in front of people. Yeah, you get used to that. Mm-hmm. You get used to failing in front of people, and it becomes you realize that you wake up the next day and you know that failure that you felt was so great, and you know you just can't overcome it. you wake up the next day and you're still you, and you get to try again. And it took me a long time to learn that, but I try to keep that with me now. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming out. I look forward to sharing this weekend with you all.
We've read them all.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Tokyo Ghoul, SacAnime! Yeah. Bye, everybody. Thank y'all for coming out.